Hi ladies, I wanted to do a little video for you about internal dialogue, just as a bit of a top up really of some of the stuff we covered in the 7-month coaching program. So yeah, here we go, just a bit of a reminder, okay? So as we talked about, there are lots of different ways of looking at this in terms of your internal dialogue. So I'm going to come at it from a few different angles and you find the one that resonates for you, okay? So lots of people have internal dialogue. It's just part of their process and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when your internal dialogue is negative or too loud or critical or it's just not very pleasant. Then there are different tips and techniques you can use repeatedly that will help you to reduce your loud, negative, critical internal dialogue. Okay, you do not need to suffer with this. It is totally possible to go from having a loud negative voice to having peace. All right, it's totally possible. Might take a while and it might take a bit of a practice, but you do not need to suffer with this all the time, okay? So I'm going to throw a few different ideas at you and see what you think. So basically, one of them is our body is a machine, and that includes our brain and our thoughts. And there's so much about our machine that is unconscious. So we pump blood around our body, our heart pumps, our lungs breathe. I mean, yes, sometimes we do consciously breathe, but mostly we're not really paying attention. You know, how my hands are moving, you know, I'm not consciously moving the nerves and the muscles and the bones, you know, it's all very unconscious. So with that in mind, it's possible that our thoughts are unconscious, you know, that we have this stream of unconscious thoughts that we can tune in and tune out of. So with that in mind, you are not your thoughts and your thoughts are not instructions. So how you learn to ignore them, turn the sound down on them, will really, really help, okay? So your unconscious thoughts are not you and they're not instructions. That's for starters. So you can, there's a few different metaphors of explaining this. So one of my favourite ones is like it's, you know, it's like an orchestra or it's like a radio playing in the background and we can turn the sound down on the radio. So it's there, but we're not really paying attention. The same as with an orchestra, and we might hear certain instruments like the trombone or the violin or the piano, but it's all there. It's just sometimes we can pick out the different sounds, okay? So you can turn the sound down on this. So sometimes people find it useful to actually visualize going into their brain, you know, and visualizing a control panel and actually turning the sound down. Now, most people, when I do this with them, they are able to turn the sound down on their internal dialogue, which is really exciting. So please check that one out as well. Another thing you can do is you can change the voice. So if you've got a particularly loud negative voice, it doesn't feel very nice. So remember, what we think impacts on how we feel, impacts on our behaviour. Okay, so if we're having lots of loud negative thoughts, that might not feel, the chances are it won't feel very nice. You know, sometimes it can be part of anxiety, you know, anything really. It's the internal dialogue. So it's how anything that you can do to change that will alter how you feel. And ultimately life is about feeling okay and feeling nice. So any sort of tips that we can do to help us. So we talked about going into the mind control center and turning the sound down. The metaphor of the radio, turning that down. You know, the orchestra and picking out different instruments. You can change the voice. So for instance, it might be your voice or a parent's voice or, you know, anybody's voice. It doesn't make any difference. It doesn't mean anything. But if you change the voice to say Donald Duck or something that you find funny, when you instantly do that, it takes the power away of the voice and it feels different to you. It appears differently. So play around with that as well. Another really good way of doing this is to shift your focus and get out of your head. So if you are someone that's in your head a lot, then it's how you learn to get out of your head without the aid of a substance and get into your body if you can. And that's why yoga, breathing, sport, dance, sex, any type of movement that allows us to focus into our body is really going to take us out of our head. So that's what we're looking for, shifting focus and getting out of your head. And also it's about noticing those activities that do that for you. So you will all have different activities that you do, you know, whether that's writing or singing or cooking or exercise. You know, there'll be different things that you do that, you know, put you in that sort of flow zone state where actually your mind is clear. And that's when you're truly in the moment and you're not in your head and you're present and you're in your body. And it feels great, doesn't it? Like sometimes people get that with art, with puzzles, you know, there's so many different things that people get that. So those sort of activities that allow you to access, you know, that sort of present, clear, empty mind state, you know, that peaceful, in the zone state. And that also illustrates that you can do it, you know, which helps you to build self-efficacy with this stuff. So noticing when that happens for you and building more of those activities in. But also, if you notice that your voice is particularly loud, it's doing those activities that you know are going to help with that, okay? Another way of doing this is like paying attention to your thoughts, noticing your thoughts and asking yourself, is this helpful? And then letting it go and shifting focus. And action is really key. You'll hear me talk about this a lot, getting out of your head into your body and action. Because when we move into action, we are not in our head, we're moving and we're doing, and that's actually really important, okay? You can just ignore it. So like a backseat driver, I love this analogy. So any of you that drive, you know, you have backseat drivers shouting at you. You don't think twice about telling them, for God's sake, shut up. You do not pay attention to them, okay? So I want you to think about your thoughts as that as well. I also want you to anchor the positive. So how often do we do this? You know, spend time throughout our day noticing what is positive and anchoring that. So when I mean anchor the positive, I mean saying it out loud or actually saying it in your head. You know, sometimes we can't say things out loud because we're around people and they might think we're bonkers. But you know, for instance, I've talked about when I used to swim in the outdoor pool and the colours were just beautiful. You know, it just felt amazing to be around these colours. So what I would do is like really focus on my strokes and how my body felt in the water, and then really focus on the colours, you know, and sort of say that to myself about how beautiful the turquoise was and the sun shining on the water and the green grass and the trees and sounds of the birds. So I'm really amplifying and anchoring that positive experience. How often do we do that? So if something bad happens, we go into detailing it in our head. We tell everyone we're anchoring the negative, okay? But what I want you to do is to get into the habit of anchoring the positive. And of course, there's a really simple stuff which works, which is about your posture, and it's sitting up and looking up. You know, when you're walking, can you look up, you know, above eye level? And also noticing things that you can see outside of yourself. You know, what can you hear, see and feel outside of you? Those grounding techniques. So any technique that you can use to shift focus, like focusing on what, you know, what you can be grateful for, things that you can appreciate, stuff like that, okay? So listen to this a few times. Let me know if your internal dialogue is an issue and then which techniques you're going to try and what works. It would be great to hear. Thank you. Bye.